All right, we will go ahead and get started. Good morning, everybody. Hope you're doing well and staying warm. Welcome to this year's iteration of the PIT and HIC guidance. What we call an HMIS end user work group, but we're going to spend today going over the PIT and HIC process. If you're new to it, it's the point in time count and the housing inventory count. It's an annual report by HUD that is required of us, and it takes a community to make it happen. So a couple of housekeeping things before we get started. We are recording this, and we will make this available on our website as we do with all of our work groups. We ask that you stay muted throughout the entirety of um, the presentation, unless, of course, you have a question. If you do, go ahead and use the raise your hand function, and we will answer you. We'll call on you to ask your question. We will answer you. Or you can put it in the chat. Me and Amanda will be monitoring the chat as we go, so you could ask your questions there as well. And then, of course, anything that we say here should absolutely be disseminated to everybody that needs to know it. So we ask that usually it's like one person at least to come from each agency, but we see there's a lot of you here, and that's great. But we want to make sure that that information is disseminated to everybody who needs to know it, so that we don't have any confusion. Real quick agenda. As I mentioned, we're going to be talking today about the housing inventory count, what's necessary and needed from you all, and then the point in time count and how that's going to work this year. And then we'll do a live Q&A at the end, just in case there's questions that we have not answered. But like I said, you can please interrupt us with your raise your hand function. You don't have to wait till the end to ask your questions. So with that, I will turn it over to Amanda to talk about the housing inventory count.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here today. So the housing inventory count, I'm going to talk about the HIC, start us off. So what is the HIC? The HIC is a housing inventory count, which is a point in time inventory for all projects within our community here in Cuyahoga, COC. And that provides the beds, units to people who are or were homeless upon entry. And those two things, when we talk about beds and units, when we're referring to beds, we're referring to persons. So think bed equals a person. And when we are talking about units, we're talking about households. So unit equals households there. And the applicable project types are all of our project types that have any type of inventory associated with them. I believe it's all of them except for street outreach and supportive services only. So the projects that we're looking for inventory on in this count is emergency shelter, transitional housing, safe haven, permanent supported housing. We also have other permanent housing, which were at one point emergency housing vouchers. I don't know if we're seeing a lot of that anymore, but those are also, we need to include them if they are. And then rapid rehousing. We would be looking for your inventory on those project types. And the data required that we're looking for is the total number of year-round beds, and that's with subsets identified for households with children, households without children, and this could also include multiple adults, like couples, things like that. Then households with children, and then of course our subpopulation, veteran beds with the household configuration, youth beds, and chronically homeless beds with the types of configurations we're looking for. We're also needing data on the total number of seasonal beds as well as overflow beds. So those are usually only overflow beds. If you're a shelter project that has those on the night that are being utilized on the night of the HIC, we need to include those as well. And then as well, people who are served on the pit night. We're needing data on them. And our pit night for this year is 1/27th, which is already next Tuesday, coming up quick. So those are the datas that we're looking for. And I could go in, I think the next slide talks about the collection process, but are there any questions there? Nope.
So I want to just reiterate or to clarify one thing. So when we ask for your inventory, we're not talking about the beds that are just happen to be available that night, right? We're talking about your full inventory and the number of persons that you're serving so that we can get a sort of utilization rate too, right? So don't just send us, hey, we have 5 beds available tonight when you're a 300 person shelter, right? We want to know about all of the beds, and then we'll get into how we're going to get your people, the sort of the pit count as well.
Okay, Nick or Megan,
Yes.
question. Now our youth shelter, we don't take only youth that are experiencing homelessness. We take youth in foster care and those referred by juvenile court. So how would we count the beds?
So are you tracking those people in HMIS?
No, no, only those in our basic center program.
Yeah, so then we just want to know about the beds in that basic center program.
Okay, got it.
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So only beds that are available for those that or designated for those that are homeless or were homeless.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, so what does the data collection process look like for the HIC? For the projects that are HMIS participating projects, this is emergency shelter, transitional housing, excuse me, safe haven, and PSH projects. Those PSH projects are just the projects based, and that's just PSH buildings. So we're looking for the bed and unit inventories, should be sent to Nick and I via email by January 23rd. And these should include only those beds and units that are online on the night of the pit count. Then for the projects for rapid rehousing and PSH, these are tenant-based vouchers, so like scattered site. We are needing the bed and unit inventories to reported via email to Nick and I by February 17th. A little bit extended deadline there because looking at these projects, we need to know only those who have a move-in date entered in their projects. So we don't need, who was in those project types at that time, just for rapid rehousing and permit or PSH tenant base, we need to know the move-in date for those that have that entered. Then what do we do with that data once we get it? Nick and I will compare the reported numbers to what is presented in HMIS. Sometimes we see a little bit of a difference from year to year, so we will update that into HMIS and compare it to what you're reporting to us. We'll make sure that that reflects in HMIS. We also might notice some utilization issues, and this is a HUD requirement. So if a utilization is above 105%, you might be receiving an email from Nick and I asking for some type of explanation of why that is. And that is only because we'll probably need to provide that at a utilization rate at some point. So we need to have that explanation available. And then, of course, if you have a low utilization rate, you may also see an email from Nick and I. And what do you mean by low? That is determined by project type. So depending on what we're seeing, comparing project types, if they're low, we'll reach out to you and ask for that explanation. Now, what does it look like for the data collection process for our non-HMIS participating projects? We will need you to review your bed and unit inventory for each of the applicable projects that I had mentioned, I believe, in the previous slide. It should only include those bed and units that are online the night of the pit as well. And then we would need an email sent to Nick and I as well, confirming your bed and unit inventory by January 23rd. And we're looking for those household breakdowns that were laid out in the previous slide. Then your census will need to be provided by another email to us by February 27th. I do apologize. My cat is joining us for the presentation. He's very excited about the HMIS HIC date. And then again, if you're having any utilization issues, we may be sending out an email asking you to provide that explanation as well. If you are above the 105 or if you have a low utilization rate determined by your project type. I see we have a hand raised. Kai, go ahead.
So on the 23rd, which is Friday, we need to send you our bid/unit inventory. So that's just basically me saying, oh, we have 40 bids available this night. Or is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And if what you guys already have in the system is correct, do you need an email? Because
I'm sorry, what was that? You kind of, I didn't get all that.
If what you already have in the system is still accurate, do we need to send an email on the 23rd?
Yes, we still need it, just for our records to compare. We still need those both.
So I would say on today, January 23rd, the Metanoia project has 40 beds available for unique guests, or
Yeah, essentially. Yep. And so the pit, the inventory technically is for the 27th, right? So that's the date that but we're asking, usually things don't change from, that from day to day, unless you're that tenant-based project. So yes, Kai, for your project and for a lot of shelters, your bed count is pretty static, right? So you could just tell us on the 23rd that I have 40 beds, and that'll be enough. And yeah, there are definitely times where what you have and that is already in the system, but the problem is you can't really see all that sometimes, and so we want to make sure that we have everybody sending us their numbers, so we have them all in one place.
okay, because I just wanted to say, the fire marshal allows for us to have up to 45 individuals. So in the case of an emergency or extreme weather like last night, we can go up to 42 individuals. So
Okay.
should I just say that 42 on Friday? I'll
Yeah.
be
However many you are offering,
okay.
is what we want to know.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I see Kaylin also has hand raised.
It's just a quick question, just to verify, making sure I'm getting all the information correctly. So I work for a PSH, and so when I'm reporting the inventories, I'm reporting availabilities only, just to clarify, because I wasn't getting.
Yeah, so we're not just available beds at the time. We want to know how many beds you have in where do you work? I'm sorry, which
A Rising Well, formerly Front Steps.
oh, yeah. So we just want to know how many units and beds you have in your building total. So
Gotcha.
that's vacant and where people are.
Okay, got you.
Any other questions? Okay. All right. So that's the entirety of the HIC. So we'll be on the lookout for some of those emails starting on Friday. And let's talk about the point in time count now. So, point in time count is a one-night count of all the persons that experience both sheltered and unsheltered homelessness in our community. The date again is the 27th, next Tuesday. The question that comes up every year, why do we do it in January? It doesn't make a lot of sense, right? We have folks that obviously are using seasonal shelter. It's cold in a lot of places, but HUD dictates that we have to do it in the last week of January, or the last 10 days, I think it is. But HUD's methodology here, they believe that the count is more precise when determining who's unable or unwilling to access traditional shelter, and it helps raise public awareness, and they use it as a tool to adjust interventions. So I've at the end of the presentation, I've linked to their methodology just in case you want to read that. But we do it because we have to, essentially here and everywhere. So the applicable project types, so you'll notice here it's a significantly shorter list in terms of we're not looking at housing projects for this. We're looking at those who are experiencing homelessness. So we're looking at the emergency shelter projects, transitional housing, safe haven, and the unsheltered. So the timing of the count. So yeah, we say that the date is the 27th. That's the night of the count. But when we say the night of, we're referring to a period of sort of what we've determined to be sunset and sunrise, spanning 2 dates. So it's actually the 27th and the 28th. So locally, we've determined that the time is going to be 5:30, starting at 5:30 on the 27th and ending at 10 a.m. on the following morning. That gives some flexibility with people, especially the unsheltered count, to be able to either go out at night or go out in the morning and ask the questions about where people were staying. For those of you, oh, sorry, in the data, we'll talk about the data required first. So we're going to be looking at the household types, right? That Amanda went over for the HIC. Basically, it's essentially the same thing. We want to know about households with children, without children, and with only children, youth households, and veteran households. We have to know the number of households served, the number of persons served in those households with the following subsets here. So we need to have age tiers identified. We need to know sex. Now, most of you know that that HUD changed the guidelines around gender and how we collect that information. Locally, we still collect gender, but sex is going to be what is we're gonna report out on for the PIT. Um, we're going to be reporting out on race and ethnicity and chronic homeless status. We also look at 4 different subpopulations. We're specifically around the number of adults who have a serious mental illness, a substance use disorder, HIV, AIDS, or survivors of domestic violence. So, how are we going to get this information? For those that are in HMIS, and we're talking about the sheltered count, when we say sheltered, we mean shelter, transitional housing, safe haven. After the PIT date, you're going to go in, you're going to make sure that all of your entries and exits are completed in HMIS for that night. So only the people who stayed in your beds that night should be open. So some places have some policies where they say, well, we're going to leave somebody open for 3 days because we don't know if they're going to come back or not. That can't happen for the PIT. We need to know exactly who's there. People need to be closed out. And I think we've gotten away from that a lot already in most of our projects, but just make sure that just the people who stayed that night are accounted for. We don't have anybody open that shouldn't be. What we'll ask you to do is run an APR, which most of you should be familiar with. It's the HUD-X 227 is the name of it in our system. But for that date alone, so you'll just run it for 127 to 127. And make sure that when you run it, you check for errors. Okay, make sure that there's no missing data. Specifically, we want to make sure that the correct people are showing is active and that all the disability and DV questions are answered for them. One thing that really stinks about the PIT when we report out is that we don't have spaces. They might change it this year, I guess, but usually we don't have spaces to put where people say they prefer not to answer or we don't know the information. So we really have to make sure that all the information is present because we really don't have a spot to put them if we have missing information. So you'll take that APR once you clean it up and make sure everything is good to go. You'll send us that APR via email, basically confirming that your numbers are accurate in the system, and we'll have you do that by that 2/17 date. For those of you who might not be in HMIS, I think there's some of you here. You're gonna do essentially the same thing. Make sure that all your data is accurate in your HMIS comparable database. You're gonna pull a roster for the PIT date with all the required data elements. And we also need to know names, date of birth, and social security numbers, if you have them, of all the program participants. And you'll send us that roster as a spreadsheet to us by that 2/17 date. We ask that you do that because we want to make sure we can deduplicate across projects. So we need the roster of people, not just numbers. Okay. The unsheltered count. So we had a meeting last week. Was it last week? Yeah, last week. We had a meeting last week with the unsheltered providers. So if you were there, you already know what's going on. But essentially what we have that meeting to sort of come up with a deployment plan, excuse me. And we did so. We have that plan that we just got sent. So thank you to NEOC for doing that. So tomorrow we were going to have those providers come see us at our office, our new offices. You get to see how the life of luxury that we're living in. It's at 2421 Community College Avenue. There is parking available up in the front of the building. You just ask for us at security and they will send you back. I also this year, because of just, circumstances, if you need to, I can deliver them to you as well. So just let me know. I send emails out already about that, but if you need a pick card, and again, this is for those participating in the unsheltered count. So that's you don't need cards if you are a shelter. Okay. So starting at 5:30 and ending at 10, like we talked about, that count will be conducted focusing on those who are bedded down for the night outside in a place not meant for human habitation. Or yeah, obviously that includes like abandoned buildings if we know about them, things like that. Each person interviewed should have a pit street card filled out in its entirety. And then cards with missing information, they could be left out because we can't deduplicate. Pit street cards are going to have to be returned to us by the 31st. Any card turned in after that date won't be considered. Okay, so we have a question in the chat here.
It's just in the process of responding. So yes to the top part, Jasmine. I was just reading the second half of that.
Yes. So Jasmine's asking, is the HIC is due on the 23rd? So the inventory is due to us on the 23rd. You have until the 17th to get us your numbers to make sure like the right people are in there, because we need the number of people as well. And again, that matters for the pit count too, because we need to be able to deduplicate with people who we are seeing in shelter, but also in PSH and in rapid rehousing, right? Um, and then the pit is the night of the 27th, correct? And it's due by the 17th. Yes. Yeah. Okay. So a little bit about how we do the deduplication process. We are going to review and compare all of the street cards that we get back, all the rosters from the non-HMIS participating providers, and the rosters from HMIS participating providers. So we compare them all. We look at all the names. It's a really fun process. And we're going to take basically any pit street card that is incomplete or doesn't have any information. We'll discard it and we'll make a note of that. And any pit street card that is duplicated with the sheltered situation will be discarded. So if somebody's listed in shelter but fills out a card as an unsheltered person, we're going to count as sheltered. Um, any duplicated sheltered person will be discussed by OHS and the providers that are overlapping until only one shelter enrollment exists. So there are times where, we have someone went to pass. This is just an example, not calling anybody out, but somebody went to pass or staying in pass, but then they ended up going to LMM or 2100 for a day, right? We're hoping that it's not going to be the pit date that happens, but if it does, we'll have to work that out and figure out where we're gonna count that person, because we can't count them twice. Okay. All right. Important note about both the HIC and the PIT. When you submit your data to us, you are basically telling us that what you have in there is accurate for that day, and it cannot change throughout the entirety of the year. So once you submit us an APR, once you submit us your rosters, whatever you're setting to us, you cannot change it. All right. Now, inventories can change, right? But you can't change the inventory for that date. In other words, you tell me that there's 40 beds using Kai's example, and then later on, maybe she says, "Oh, I said 40, but I need to change it to 39, and I need it to start on the 1st of January." Right? So that impacts what you had reported to us, and we can't go back. So your inventory can change later on, and we can make those adjustments. But the people that are enrolled, specifically in HMIS, cannot change. You cannot go back and add people. You cannot go back and remove people, because all of our end of the year reporting that goes to the federal government as well compares what we reported at this point in time to what we have at the end of the year for the same date. A lot of the flags that we just went through in the LSA had a lot to do with comparing what we had on the Pitt and HIC from the beginning of the year of last year to what we were reporting at the end of the year. And they flag it, and we have to explain what the changes were, why it changed, if it should have changed or not, right? So by confirming your data via email, you are agreeing that this data will never change and is completely accurate. So with that, here's some links to some resources. The 2020, you'll notice it says 2024 housing inventory count and point time count collection notice. It's because they did not release a new one. They just essentially said use last year's minus the fact that we're going to be collecting, biological sex. And I also, like I said, put the HUD point in time count methodology, sort of their reasoning for why they ask for it at this time of year. So that'll be available to you. I'll have the slide deck and like I said, the recording on our website, so you'll be able to see what you need to see. So with that, are there any outstanding questions? No? That's that. Now, a lot of you have done this before, so that makes sense. But if there's anybody new to the process that has questions, we definitely want to hear from you. Okay. Well, look at
No takers.
that. All right. Well, with that then, that's all we have for today. So we just want to make sure that everybody was up to date and knows what was going on. So next Tuesday is the count. Oh, somebody have a question? Oh, okay. Yeah. So next Tuesday is our count. We'll look forward to some emails coming through by, on Friday. You can send them today, whenever you want to, as long as it's by Friday. And we'll let you guys go. Thanks,
I'm
everybody.
sorry,
Oh,
Nick. I'm
yeah.
so sorry. I was trying to I'm in my car, so I was trying to get the volume together. So I would like to know. So I'm kind of new to all of this,
hmm
and so right now I just started my position as a supervisor for the housing navigation team at Norma Herb. So I would like to know like the process that you just explained. I don't think I would be doing that part, but I would like to know, how can I say this? Like what should we do as far as like navigators to make sure that our data is like accurate, and I guess how would this process affect us as navigators, as housing navigators, if that
Yeah.
makes sense? Mhm.
Yeah, and Vita just put in the chat. I don't know if you saw it, but yeah, Renee, you probably won't have anything to do with this process.
Okay.
Yeah, we're really focused on shelter data, like who's there and who's not necessarily where people are in their housing situation right now.
Oh,
Um, so I think that Vita said Renee, we will talk with you. So you got
okay.
you got your team working behind you, so that's good. And then yeah, and then I think we have a training with you all coming up too. So that's something different and has nothing to do with this, but um that's more up your alley, I think.
Okay. All right. I appreciate that. Thank you so
Yes,
much.
of course.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Since we have such a small population, do you think it might be helpful for us to have each of our guests fill out pit cards for that night?
No, you will need to have them in HMIS.
Okay, well, most of them will already be in HMIS, but we might have we have new people every other night that are coming in.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yep. So
just
you'll
so,
you'll just send us your inventory, Kai, and then you'll have until the 17th to make sure that the data for the 27th is accurate.
okay.
Hello, this is Tiara from Joseph and Mary's home. Our bed
Hello.
count, hello, our bed count has doubled because we've opened up our Joseph home. Is there something we need to do prior to, because we do have a larger bed availability in our system currently now?
Yep. So you'll in that email that we're asking for,
Mhm.
on Friday, you'll tell us exactly how many beds you have. And then, you'll want to give us some breakdown. I think, you're serving mostly adults only, but you'll give us the breakdown of the data that we asked for, right? And then we'll make the adjustment in HMIS for you.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Any other questions? Okay. All right. Well, we will let you guys go. Have a great rest of your day and your rest of your week. I'll see some of you tomorrow for the unsheltered pick cards. If not, we'll talk through email as we work through this process together. Thank you for everything you guys do. Have a good rest
Thanks,
of your day.
everyone.
Thank
Thanks,
you,
guys.
everyone.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Stay
Thank
warm.
you.
Bye-bye.